Welcome back to another video, and today we got our long-awaited first college basketball video of the year. We're starting off with the ACC. We're going to look at the conference, take a look at each and every 18 teams now in the conference due to conference realignment. We're going to predict the standings that I think the conference will play out in. And then, of course, we will do all the other Power 5 conferences because the Pac-12, we all know what happened with the Pac-12, rest in peace. So there's now only 5 power conferences, but we are going to take a look at each and every one and do a video for each one, along with our Week 1 or preseason Power 40 rankings in a week from today, so you can look forward to that. This week we got a pretty loaded schedule. Like I said, we're doing all these college basketball videos along with our college football and NFL content. Not only do we have that, we do NBA and MLB as well. So if any of that interests you, make sure you go down there, subscribe to the channel if you're new, turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss whenever we upload those, and like this video if you enjoyed. But with all that being said, let's just get right into the little screen here. It's going to be empty right now because we're going to reveal them one at a time, and we're going to start with the bottom. At the 18 place, the number 18 team that I think will be in the ACC is going to be Boston College. I mean, when looking at Boston College, they have finished outside of the top 10 in every single year they've had with their head coach, Earl Grant. They didn't really do much in the offseason to improve. A lot of people are saying Boston College is going to be the worst team in the ACC, so I'm going to trust their word with that. They really just don't have much, talent, nothing really to get excited about here. At number 17, I have Stanford. With Stanford, they have a 7'1" center, which is interesting. They move over from the Pac-12, but Stanford wasn't good in the Pac-12 last year. I think the ACC is probably better. I mean, it definitely is better than the Pac-12 was last year. Like I said, weren't good last year. It's going to be, I believe, a rough year in their first inaugural season in the ACC. I mean, like I said, they bring back their 7'1" center, who was their leading scorer and leading rebounder, but the rest of their starters did leave, so I don't know. It doesn't look great for Stanford here. At number 16, I have Cal. When looking at Cal last year moved up a whole lot of spots in KenPom throughout the year, and they were 9-11 in conference play last year, so that's not bad. I mean, Cal was improving last year, but first year in the ACC, similar to Stanford, and they do lose pretty much everyone from their team last year. I mean, they lost their top 9 scorers. It's pretty much a whole new team, so I don't know really what to expect from Cal here. Number 15, I have Virginia Tech. Again, similar with the Cal, with a lot of these bottom teams. I mean, they weren't really good last year, and they lose pretty much all of their starters. Yeah, they actually do lose all 5 of their starters from last year. Like I said, they weren't even good last year, so we'll see with Virginia Tech. They do bring in a transfer from Temple who averaged 16 points a game last season, but I don't know. I'm not really too high on Virginia Tech going into this year. Number 14, I have Florida State. Again, just not good last year. They don't bring back really anyone. I mean, they only bring back one starter. He was the VCU transfer, Jameer Watkins, who did average 16 points a game, which I guess could be interesting, but I don't know. I'm not really too excited. They were, like I said, bad team replacing a lot of their guys. Don't really know what to expect here. 13, I have SMU. It is their first year in the league as well, which I think they could make some noise. SMU is a team I feel like could finish anywhere from like 8 to all the way down to 18. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. They were solid last year in the American. It's probably going to be a little bit more rough in the ACC. I mean, it definitely is. I mean, they bring back Chuck Harris from last season. He was their second leading scorer. He's a really good 3-point shooter. But I don't know. They really don't bring back anyone else. I think 13's a fair spot for them. You could definitely argue they should be lower. You could definitely argue they should be higher as well. They're kind of a wild card here. At number 12, I have Syracuse. A little bit disappointing. I mean, if you're a Syracuse fan, because you're expecting, big things for Syracuse. But when looking at this year, I mean, Jim Bohein's successor didn't really do much in his first year, and that was probably expected. He was 11-9 in conference. It's not like he was bad or anything. Um, but I mean, I don't know. It's definitely. I mean, Syracuse is again another one of these teams could go anywhere from 7 all the way down to 16. I don't think Syracuse has as much of a low floor as SMU. But when looking at Syracuse, they do bring in Eddie Lampkin, which is definitely interesting. He was pretty solid on Colorado, who actually won 2 games in the NCAA tournament. But besides that, there's not much to get excited for here, so I'm going to keep him at 12. Number 11, I have Notre Dame. Notre Dame, again, another one of these teams that I can see having a huge range of outcomes. I mean, when looking at Notre Dame, they were pretty bad last year. Um, it's it's not great. I mean, it, they bring back 4 of their 5 starters, so it's a very similar team. But like I said, they were bad last year. I guess it's different than a lot of these bottom teams because a lot of these bottom teams have a whole new team and they were also bad. Notre Dame, they were bad, but they bring everyone back, so they'll have another year to play with each other. Marcus Burton actually averaged 17.5 points a game last year. He is back. They bring in a couple transfers. I don't know. Notre Dame, I think 11's fair at this point. This is kind of where I feel comfortable putting them because I don't expect them to make a huge jump, but I don't expect them to be a bottom feeder. I think they'll finish somewhere here towards the middle. Number 10, I have Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was actually an interesting team last year because they put off a lot of upset victories. They beat Duke, UNC, and also Clemson, I believe, last year. Um, Definitely some highlights from last year. I mean, um, they didn't make the tournament or anything. They didn't really do anything special. Um, but they bring a lot of their starters back, 3 of their 5 starters. I think it's interesting because they were actually a solid team, and they do bring a good amount back. So I think Georgia Tech could actually be one of the dark horse teams in the ACC. When looking at number 9, I have NC State. We got to talk about NC State because they obviously made the Final Four last year, but no more DJ Horn, no more DJ Burns. I mean, it's unfortunate how they lose a lot of their core, pretty much all their core. Um, they bring back some of their role players, but I I mean, they lose pretty much everyone who did. I mean, almost anything. They only bring back 1 starter. It's hard for me to predict them to go any lower than this. So I feel like 9's fair. I mean, I don't see them being a bottom feeder just because. I mean, they did make the Final Four. You got to give them some respect, but they're. I mean, it's a whole new team for NC State. At number 8, I have Louisville. Louisville, the highest, change from last year. They were absolutely atrocious last year. I think they only won 3 or 4 games. I believe only 1 in conference, maybe 0. But they move on from Kenny Payne. They bring in a new coach. They bring in Chucky Hepburn from Wisconsin. They also bring in Terrence Edwards Jr., the reigning Sun Belt Player of the Year. I feel like Louisville could make some noise this year, surprise some people. I don't know. I like what they did in the transfer portal. They pretty much cleaned house. I'm interested to watch Louisville this year. I feel like they could definitely surprise some people, kind of come out of nowhere. Number 7, this is kind of where I believe the tournament, or at least the possible tournament team start. I'll say that I believe the top 7 get in the tournament. Virginia at 7. Now, I normally would go higher with Virginia, but Tony Bennett did just retire. Um, they're also bringing a lot of new players. They haven't really seen success in March, all that much. I do expect the defense to still be good. I mean, it always is. But I kind of wanted to be a little conservative with this ranking just to see how much losing Tony Bennett really affects them because I believe it's going to affect them at least somewhat. I mean, they're not going to be an elite team in the ACC this year. I didn't expect them to be one even with Tony Bennett. Uh, Nonetheless, without him, I mean, they lost four of their top five scorers from last year. So I do worry about them a little bit. I think they could sneak into the tournament just because I do believe the defense will still be good, but I definitely am interested to see because Virginia could be a top four team. They could be a bottom four team. I mean, this is about as crazy as you can get of ranges just because losing Tony Bennett is really a huge loss. I feel like these top six are kind of secure. Actually, I don't want to say secure, but I don't know because this is another team, Miami, that I feel like again has a very interesting range of outcomes. I mean, they were a team that I was very high on going into last year. They finished last year on a 10-game losing streak. I mean, they were very disappointing last year. But they bring back Nigel Pack. They bring back Matthew Cleveland. They bring in some transfers here and there. They bring in some recruits. A five-star freshman actually coming in, Jaleel Bethia. He'll probably, be a first rounder in the NBA draft. Miami's got a lot of talent. I don't expect them to be as disappointing. I don't expect them to go crazy whatsoever. But I mean, again, they could be a team where, because they had the talent last year and severely disappointed, they could be a team anywhere from 3 to 12. I mean, it's really hard to rank an 18-team conference. I do believe Miami, though, is closer to the better side than the worse side. And I do think Miami should be a tournament team. Number 5, I have Pitt. 5, 6, 7 are kind of the bubble teams for me, in my opinion. I think Pitt is definitely an interesting team. They are actually in top 30 in Bart Torvik rankings, which I thought was kind of interesting. I mean, they actually got pretty hot at the end of last year. Um, they finished 10-3 in their final 13 games. They just barely didn't get in. I thought they did deserve to get in last year. Four of their top six scores are back. They were a bubble team last year. I think they should, you know, improve off of last year. I mean, they bring back a whole lot of their guys, and they just barely missed the tournament. I think Pitt is a safe tournament team bet at this point. Number 4, I have Clemson. Clemson, another interesting team where they are coming off a Final Four run last year. Or sorry, not a Final Four run, an Elite Eight run, where they did end up losing to Alabama. They lose PJ Hall, which does hurt quite a bit, but they bring back Chase Hunter. He averaged 13 points a game last year. I think he'll definitely, be the new face of the team, I guess. Clemson will definitely be an interesting team to watch. I do expect them to be good. They usually are pretty good now at this point. But losing PJ Hall does sting a little bit if you're a Tigers fan. I do expect them though to be one of the better teams in the ACC once again. Moving into the top 3 teams, though, I do believe these are all very good teams, specifically the top 2. But we'll talk about the third team because I actually am pretty high on this third team. It's going to be Wake Forest. With Wake Forest, they have gotten into the NIT. A couple of years now in the past, in recent memory. I feel like this is the year they got to get in the tournament, though. They bring back Hunter Salas. He averaged 18 points a game last year. 2 of the other top 5 scorers on the team from last year, besides Salas, as well come back. They're looking to have a really impressive year, and I think the ACC is kind of the top 2 is pretty neck and neck. Those are 2 national title contenders. Once you get to the past the top 2, though, I mean, it's kind of anyone's game. I feel like Wake Forest is the best option here, especially with Hunter Salas coming back. That is a huge, a huge win for their program. I think this is the year Wake Forest kind of gets over the hump. I wouldn't be surprised if Wake Forest finishes as like a 6, 7 seed when it's all said and done. But the top two teams, clearly it's Duke and UNC. Um, Now, who do I have at 1 and 2? This is very tough. I'm very, 50-50 on this. I've been back and forth. I was I was thinking one team for the majority of this past month when I've been really thinking about these rankings. But recently I have switched it. I have Duke at number 2, and I'm going to tell you why. Duke is pretty much the consensus to win this conference. I mean, there are some brave souls like me taking UNC, but most people I think are taking Duke. I mean, they bring in uh, I believe 4 5 stars, namely Cooper Flagg, the number 1 recruit in the country and projected number 1 pick in the NBA draft next year. They also bring back Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster. I mean, they got the mix of talent, star power, veteran. Duke is definitely a team. I mean, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're number 1. They're probably a top 5 team in the country, in my opinion, at least. Um, Cooper Flagg is arguably going to be in contention for National Player of the Year. I know he's a freshman, but he is that good. I mean, he played on Team USA and didn't really struggle against the best basketball players in the world as an 18-year-old. So that's definitely something you like to see. And he's not going to be playing against the NBA talent. I mean, there is some, but college basketball is definitely nowhere near the NBA, at least talent-wise. Duke's going to be a really good team. John Shire, I do believe their Duke is pretty much a lock for a 1 or 2 seed in March Madness. But the team that I do expect to be number 1, I think it's UNC. I think UNC, they were a 1 seed last year, and they bring back R.J. Davis, the reigning ACC Player of the Year. He averaged 21 points a game last year. He's only going to get better. They bring in a top 10 recruiting class. A bunch of 5 stars: Ian Jackson, Drake Powell. They bring in Cade Tyson from Belmont, who is actually really good at Belmont. I wouldn't be surprised if they make another run in the tournament. They did fall short against Alabama in the tournament in the Sweet 16, I believe it was. I do expect UNC to have a very good season and arguably make it farther. I mean, it's not out of the range of possibilities. UNC is another one of these teams I believe could be a top 5 team in the country right now. I mean, like I said, the ACC has 2 heavy hitters at the top, and then it's kind of anyone's game or anyone's, conference. I do believe UNC just narrowly is better than Duke, but you could make the argument for either one. It is very close. I mean, they bring back 5 of their top 8 scorers from last year who did win the ACC. They also, like I said, they also bring in a top 10 recruiting class and transfers. So UNC and Duke both going to be stacked this year. It's going to be a battle for these two teams, and the rivalry games this year between these two are just going to be absolutely legendary. I mean, they always are, but especially this year because I believe these two teams are arguably both top 5 teams in the country. I do think UNC gets the slight edge, though, in my opinion, right now. But like I said, it's as close as you can get. I mean, this is a very tough decision. But let me know what you think about my season predictions, my thoughts on the conference. Give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Love to talk down there. And it's so great to have college basketball back. I mean, we're a week away as of today from the start of the regular season. It's a very exciting time to be on the channel. We're going to be doing college basketball Power 40 rankings every single Monday. But this week, we're going to have loads of previews. I mean, I believe we're going to have our Big East Thursday, Big 12 Friday, SEC Saturday, Big 10 Sunday, and then right into college basketball Power 40 rankings on Monday. So it's going to be a great time to be on the channel if you're a college basketball fan, along with college football every Tuesday, NFL every Wednesday. Typically NBA's Thursday, but not this week. But we do NBA as well as MLB, so if any of that interests you, make sure you go on there, subscribe to the channel. Links in the description, as always, X, Twitch, TikTok, Discord. With all that being said, though, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow with our college football top 25 rankings.